Greetings everyone, welcome to the Pitaya Movie Channel. Today we commence the first episode of the classic horror series Wrong Turn. On a bright and sunny weekend, Richie and Eddie ventured to a desolate hill in a remote countryside of West Virginia for a rock climbing expedition. Richie, young and vigorous, swiftly ascended to the summit. Eddie lagged behind, suddenly slipped and plummeted, cried out in fright. Thankfully, the safety rope ensured a close call. As Eddie continued her climb, she called for Richie's assistance. Yet the previously teasing Richie remained silent. Looking up, she discovered Richie's head is drooping lifeless on the cliff's edge, unresponsive to any of her calls. Blood dripped onto Eddie's face. Someone attacked Richie atop the hill. His lifeless body was hurled off the cliff. A figure began pulling on Eddie's safety rope furiously as she was about to be yanked upward. In a desperate moment, Eddie severed the safety rope with her knife, exerting all her strength to climb to the left, attempting to grasp the safety rope on the side. Despite her valiant efforts, she still fell. Footsteps and eerie cries echoed from the hilltop. Eddie scrambled to her feet and stumbled towards their car, only to be tripped by a well-placed barbed wire. Amidst her screams, Eddie was dragged away, according to media reports, deep in the mountains of West Virginia. Lives, a group of descendants of inbred with distorted faces, hunched bodies, and minds deranged. They often abduct and murder men and women exploring the area. There are even reports of human eating. They are known as cannibals in the mountains. Numerous disappearances are likely related to these cannibals. A week later, our protagonist Chris speeds to Roanoke, West Virginia by car. He is scheduled and rushing for an interview. His car radio broadcasts the news of the movie's opening. The disappearance of a man and woman drew little attention to Chris. Driving fast along the way, soon encounters a traffic jam. He exits the car to inquire ahead. An accident has caused a chemical spill, stretching for 5 kilometers and is expected to last several hours. In a hurry, Chris turns back, searching for an alternative route while calling his employer, explaining he will be half an hour late. Before he could finish the words, his phone loses signal. He accelerates toward his destination. Passing a dilapidated gas station with an unkempt elderly man sitting beside Chris, stops and tries to use the landline, but finds it broken. However, on the gas station wall, he discovers a map. Someone has drawn a red dashed line on it, seemingly bypassing the traffic jam. The old man claims it is a new route, not yet updated on the map. Chris tells the old man, "Thank you, take care," and hastily drives away, watching Chris's departing figure. The old man mutters, "It's you who should take care." At a fork in the road, seeing a sign for Bear Mountain Road, hesitated for a moment, Chris takes the left path. Not long after he spots a fallen deer by the roadside, attempting to inspect the scene through the rearview mirror, he rear-ends a car in front of him. Several people exit the car he hits. They explain the tire burst stopped them in the middle of the road. Observant Jesse, dressed in white, notices a wire traps deliberately placed, causing the burst. As each end was tied to trees by the road, both cars are damaged, and no cell phone signal is available. Chris and 3 others set out on foot to seek help. Evan and Francine, with ulterior motives, stay put. At this moment, a pair of eyes in the woods is fixed on them. As the 4 who left venture farther away and seeing no one around, Evan and Francine begin to snuggle up. On the other side, Scott, wearing a yellow shirt, and ponytailed Carly are a couple. While walking, they discuss plans for their upcoming wedding. Evan and Jesse walk ahead. Within further, a burning tire is spotted by the roadside, indicating people nearby. Yet no one responds to their calls. A tinge of fear crosses Chris's face. He quickens his pace and continues forward. Meanwhile, Francine climbs into Chris's car, searching for CDs to play. Behind her, Evan rummages for food in the car, just talking to Francine, but suddenly stops responding. Francine exits the car to search, but finding Evan nowhere to be seen, assuming Evan went into the woods to relieve himself, she discovers one of Evan's shoes by the road, not aware of what's happening. She ventures further in and finds a near bleeding. Terrified, Francine, on the verge of tears, hastily retreats, but is suddenly choked from behind with an iron wire back to the other side. Scott talks incessantly about his wedding fantasies while walking. Realizing Carly has disappeared, he calls out loudly, receiving no response. At that moment, mischievous Carly suddenly bursts out of the woods, startling Scott so much that his hair nearly stands on end. He scolds Carly sternly. The 4 follow the unmarked path on the map. Find a dilapidated house with smoke rising from the chimney. It is clearly inhabited. The yard is filled with scrapped cars. Sensitive, Jessie senses something strange but can't conclude. She can only follow the group anxiously. Chris knocks on the door. Receiving no answer, he opens the slightly ajar door, preparing to enter. Jessie reminds him it's impolite. Scott warns that in West Virginia, trespassing into private homes can be dangerous. But Carly urgently needs a restroom, and they desperately need to find a phone for help. In hesitation, Chris finally enters the house. Carly follows, desperate for the restroom, cautious and sensitive. Jessie and Scott slowly enter as well, calling out with still no response. Around the house, dirty dishes lay on the table and a record player is on. Jessie finds several sets of car keys on a plate, a pile of sunglasses on the table, and a girl's hair accessory that clearly does not belong here. Carly locates the restroom, rushes in, and closes the door. Chris continues searching for a phone, discovers a generator, and 2 cans containing what seems to be human fingers and teeth. Inside the refrigerator are jars of strange items. Jessie finds a piece of wire mesh, identical to the one that punctured their tires. Meanwhile, in the restroom, Carly shockingly finds an arm in the filthy bathtub. Terrified, she rushes out, urging everyone to leave immediately, but it's too late. The sound of a car engine comes from outside. A tow truck arrives, towing their 2 cars. They try to escape through the back door, but the door won't open. Chris and Jessie hide under a bed. Cannibals enter the room, throwing the wire mesh onto the bed. Then with a thud, Fran's lifeless body is thrown onto the floor, facing the 2 hiding under the bed. Everyone is too scared to breathe. Blood almost reaches Chris's hand, then Fran's body is dragged onto a table. The hideous cannibals begin sawing her. After a long ordeal, the cannibals go to bed. Loud snores fill the room. Chris and Jessie quietly crawl out from under the bed. Scott and Carly sneak out from another room. Carly accidentally kicks a jar. Startling everyone, they gasp. Fortunately, the cannibals are sound asleep. They stir around but are unawake. Chris holds the door spring to avoid making noise. The other 3 slowly exit. But at the last moment, one of the cannibals wakes up and sees Chris. Everyone frantically climbs up the hill. The cannibals get in their cars, preparing to intercept Carly, scared. Feeling her leg weak, stands up with the encouragement of the others. They didn't get far before discovering another area filled with parked cars. They want to find a car to escape, but all the vehicles are wrecked and blood-stained. Soon, they see the tow truck approaching. 3 cannibals get out of it with the engine is still running. They have guns and axes in their hands and carry bows and arrows on their backs, slowly approaching the group. After discussing a plan, Chris runs out to deliberately lure the cannibals so the others can seize the cannibals' vehicle. Chris shouts and runs into the woods. After a gunshot, Chris falls in the forest, where the 3 cannibals chase after. Seeing Chris in danger, Scott shouts and runs to the opposite direction. Another gunshot is heard. The cannibals turn to chase after Scott, Jessie, and Carly take the chance to run to Chris. Fortunately, Chris only has a leg injury. They help him up and run to the tow truck. Opening the door, Evan's lifeless body falls out. Startling Carly, begins to cry. Chris quickly pulls her into the vehicle and starts the car. A cannibal chases after them, howling in the distance. Meanwhile, Scott frantically runs through the woods. He almost reaches the tow truck, but a cannibal shoots him with an arrow. With 2 more arrows hit, Scott falls to the ground. Another arrow hits the car's windshield. Jessie floors the gas pedal, racing away. Chris tries to comfort devastated Carly while the 3 cannibals drag Scott away. Unfortunately, they don't get far before the car gets stuck. They have no choice but to get out, the heartbroken. Carly doesn't want to run anymore. Jessie and Chris persuade her, standing up again, but reluctant, and continue their difficult journey. At dusk, they find a tall treehouse and climb in. To their despair, from the treehouse, they can't see any roads or villages. Jessie finds a first aid kit in the corner and bandages Chris's wound. Carly finds some glow sticks for lighting and then discovers a radio. But after calling for help, there's no response. At that moment, the 3 cannibals arrive, carrying torches. They haven't noticed the group in the treehouse yet. Unfortunately, the radio suddenly receives a response from the emergency center. Making noise reveals their location. The police and the radio ask for their location, but nobody knows where they are. The 3 cannibals start to climb up. Chris quickly moves a cabinet to block the trap door. The cannibals try to break through, but couldn't make it. Then there's silence. Soon, an even more terrifying event occurs. The cannibals set the treehouse on fire. Carly, in a state of panic, wants to jump down as Jessie stops her. Chris takes a look and realizes jumping directly to the ground could cause injury. But they can try to jump onto nearby branches. He jumps first with the fire growing larger. Carly is the second to jump. She almost falls straight to the ground, but Chris pulls her onto the trunk with all his strength. Jesse is the last. Just when they think they can catch their breath, an arrow hits the branch. The cannibals start to climb the tree. Chris leads the group. As they quietly move along the branches, another arrow lands at Jesse's feet. The cannibals quickly catch up to Carly, who's lagging behind. An axe strikes right into her mouth. Jessie is so scared she wants to cry out, but Chris tightly covers her mouth. Pulling themselves together, Chris and Jessie continue to move along the branches. Not far behind, the cannibals follow. Chris comes up with a plan. He tells Jessie to hold onto a thinner branch while he lures the cannibals. When the cannibals approach, they'll suddenly release the branch, knocking the cannibals down. Jessie, believing Chris's injured leg would slow him down and make it dangerous, volunteers to distract the cannibals. Chris takes his position. Jessie climbs to the main trunk and starts to shout loudly, luring the cannibals. A cannibal suddenly appears behind her. Frightened, Jessie lies down on the branch, backing away in retreat. The cannibal takes a step-by-step approach. Chris suddenly releases the branch he's holding. The branch, like a bent spring, sweeps the cannibal down. The cannibals below are infuriated, letting out a series of strange cries. Jessie and Chris take the opportunity to climb down the tree and escape to a waterfall. The cannibals, unable to find them, gradually walk away with their torches. During their conversation, it's revealed Jessie had received a breakup message from her boyfriend. When she was feeling depressed, Carly, Scott, Evan, and Francis had specifically organized this trip to help her feel better. Now, they all lost their lives to the cannibals' axes. Jessie is heartbroken. Chris hugs her and softly comforts her. As daylight breaks, the two continue their escape along the slope. Finally, they spot a road at the foot of the mountain as they are figuring out how to get down. Suddenly, a large axe grazes Chris's head and embeds in a tree trunk. The cannibals have found them again with another swing of the axe. Chris is knocked down and rolls down the slope. Jessie screams in terror at the top of the hill. A police car happens to be passing by on the road. Chris rushes to the road and flags down the police car. Before the police officer can even ask what's happening, a cannibal shoots an arrow through his eye and into the back of his skull. Chris attempts to drive the police car to escape, but finds no keys. He quickly hides under the car. The cannibal picks up the car keys that fell on the ground, but by the time he searches for Chris has already crawled out and escaped to the nearby bushes. The cannibal drags the police officer onto the car and prepares to drive away. Chris hurriedly crawls back and clings to the underside of the car. On the other side, Jessie has been tied up and taken back to the cannibal's lair, guarded by one of them. The police car is quickly driven back as well. With the police officer being unloaded, the cannibals enter the house. Chris stealthily crawls out from under the car. They dismember the police officer and then prepare to deal with Jessie. Suddenly, a door catches fire, drawing the attention of two cannibals. Immediately, Chris drives the police car into the house, knocking one cannibal off his feet and throwing a Molotov cocktail at another, setting him ablaze. Chris picks up a wrench, swings it with all his might, making the cannibal fall. He quickly turns to untie the wire around Jessie. Just as he frees one of her arms, the knockdown cannibal gets up and engages Chris in a fierce fight. Just as Chris is about to be choked to death by the cannibal, Jessie, now fully untied, shoots an arrow through the cannibal's head. The cannibal collapses. As another one rushes in, Chris chokes him from the shadow, and Jessie strikes him down with an axe. The two stumble out of the house, then Chris shoots the car's gas tank, blowing up the house in an instant. In the final scene, Jessie and Chris drive the cannibal's truck and return to the rundown gas station from the beginning. Chris tears off the questionable map, the old man guarding the gas station hiding inside the building. Terrified, watch them leave. The movie ends. Friends, do you think the old man guarding the gas station has any connection with the cannibals? Feel free to leave comments and discuss. The first chapter of the Wrong Turn series comes to an end here. If we reach over 1,000 likes, I'll bring you the next episode of the Wrong Turn series ASAP. Thank you all for your continued support. See you next time.